So that house cost me $58 out of pocket. Okay. $58 is what it took for me to buy that house. That house has now doubled in equity and cash flows, $1,100 to $1,200 per month. And I bought that while I was in residency.
Welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast, the show where we teach you how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want.
Doctor! 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 Doctor!
Now, here's your host, Dr. Alex Schloe.
What if I told you that you could buy your first real estate investment property with $0 out of pocket and do it while still in residency or active duty? No massive down payment, no PMI, no excuses. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Schloe with the Physicians and Properties Podcast, and today we are diving deep into two powerful and often overlooked loan programs that allow physicians and veterans to purchase real estate with no money down, the physician loan and the VA loan. If you've been on the sidelines thinking that you need hundreds of thousands of dollars into the bank to get started, this episode will change your mind. Let's get into it. Physicians are often strapped for time, buried in student debt, and unsure where to begin with investing. The good news is you can start building wealth in real estate without needing to come up with 20% down. This is something that stops most folks in their tracks. If you're a doctor, a dentist, a veteran, you may qualify for no money down financing that can help you house hack or buy a property that builds wealth passively, even with a packed clinic schedule. Let's start with the physician loan. This is something that's called a doctor loan typically, and here's what makes it powerful. You can buy a primary residence with no money down. There's no private mortgage insurance. There's flexible debt to income ratios. And the reason behind that is they're often looking at future income, like a signed employment contract that can count towards qualifying. The banks are counting on your ability as a physician and your future income potential to guarantee that loan. So they're willing to flex in terms of debt to income ratio, and they're understanding that a lot of residents or a lot of young attendings have a lot of the student debt. This is typically only available for primary residences, and they have to be single family homes. If you're listening to this and you know of a physician loan product where you can buy multiple units or a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, please let me know. I'd love to reach out to the lender and learn more. But typically this is available for primary residencies only, and that's a single family home. So this can be used to jumpstart your wealth building. This can be used to jumpstart your financial freedom journey while you're in residency. A lot of times I have residents who come up to me and they ask, hey, how do I get started investing in real estate? This is an absolutely incredible way to do it. You could buy a 4 or 5 bedroom single family house in a nice area for no money down and then rent out each of those bedrooms to one of your residency mates. Then you'd be cash flowing, building equity, getting all the tax benefits of owning real estate while you're in residency, not to mention living in a nice place for free. I mean, imagine working all those long clinical hours, working all those long residency hours, and you're cash flowing from day one. You just need to live in this house for 1 year. That's the requirements typically for a primary residence. So in theory, you could buy multiple of these while you're in residency. I mean, talk about a huge jump start when you become a young attending. For my fellow veterans and active duty military out there, the VA loan may be one of the best wealth building tools available. And here's why. It's 0% down. There's no PMI. There's competitive interest rates, and there's no prepayment penalties. This can be used to buy a 1 to 4 unit property as long as you live in one of the units. And it's backed by the Department of Veteran Affairs, making it a low risk product for lenders and a low risk product for the sellers of these properties. It's such a cool opportunity that you can buy 1 to 4 units, which is something you can't do with a typical physician loan. This would allow you to buy a fourplex, a 4 unit property, live in 1 unit, rent out the rest. Again, you're building equity and cash flow starting from day one. You could rent out each of those units to your residency mates or multiple of them and just continue to cash flow. And then a year later, do the same thing again. There's a common myth that VA loans are a one-time use, and that's not true. As long as you have remaining entitlement on your loan, you can use it again. And in some cases, you can even carry multiple VA loans. There is something to be aware of, and that's the VA funding fee, since that's the only upfront cost of the program to be aware of. The VA funding fee is a one-time fee charged by the VA to help cover the cost of the program since there's no PMI. Here's how it works. first time VA loan users who are putting no money down, again, this is a no money down loan product, would pay a 2.15% funding fee. If you've used the VA loan before, that fee is going to increase to 3.3%. If you put down 5% or more, the funding fee is reduced. But again, this is a no money down product. So you don't have to put anything down unless you want to. And yes, you can roll that funding fee into your mortgage. So you don't have to bring cash to close. Also, a big note, if you were service connected, if you have a service connected disability with even a 10% rating, you're typically exempt from that funding fee altogether, which is a huge benefit. So I would say these loan products are absolutely amazing ways to build wealth. With the physician loan, typically you can only buy a single family home. So you can't buy a multi-unit property. There's no funding fee. With the VA loan, you have the benefit of being able to buy a 1 to 4 unit property. You do have that small funding fee, but you can wrap that into the loan. So these are incredible tools. Now, just because you can buy a house with no money down, it doesn't mean that you should just buy any deal possible. Okay. There still needs to be some parameters. You still have to have your goals. Okay. But let's talk about an example. In terms of the physician loan, we'll use myself for an example. When I was an intern at Eglin Family Medicine Residency in Florida, I bought my house, and that house I bought with no money down, a physician loan through what was SunTrust Bank at the time. They weren't able to cover all the fees except they were able to cover all the fees except for one. So that house cost me $58 out of pocket. Okay. $58 is what it took for me to buy that house. That house has now doubled in equity and cash flows, $1,100 to $1,200 per month passively as a long-term rental. Okay. So absolutely amazing way. And I bought that while I was in residency. Another example is a resident friend of mine used a physician loan. They bought a $600,000 house, and that was 4 bedrooms. They rented out each of the other bedrooms for $800 per month. So they lived in one. They rented out 3 other bedrooms for $800 per month. They were renting the house out for $2,400 per month. They had a mortgage of $3,000. So they lived in a nice house for only $600 a month while building equity. That's a non-cash flowing example, but it still shows you like you could live in a nice house for only $600 per month while building equity. There's other ways you could do this. You could buy a cheaper house or more bedrooms or charge more for rent. So there's plenty of ways where you could still cash flow from day one on a property while in residency using a physician loan. Okay. Another thing you could do as a VA loan is you could buy a fourplex. A ER doc I know used the VA loan to buy a fourplex. He lived in 1 unit for a year, and then he moved out and he rented all 4. That property now cash flows $1,200 per month, and he started with no money down. And get this, after he moved out of that house, after he moved out of that duplex they lived in for a year, he went and did the same thing. And that property, when he moves out, is also going to cash flow him $1,200 per month. And he's fresh out of residency. These are not unicorn deals. This is how smart professionals are using tools that are already available to them. And these tools are most likely available to you as well. So a few quick caveats. Both the physician and the VA loan require you to live in the property for at least 12 months. That's why this works best for house hacking. You can't use them to buy a second home, vacation property, or pure investment from day one, but you can convert them to rentals later on. Not all lenders are going to offer physician or VA loans. So you're going to want to work with someone who's familiar with these specific products. If you have any questions, I do have a few recommended lenders and I can get you in contact with them. VA loans also typically are going to have minimum property standards. So the house has to be safe, sanitary, structurally sound. So the VA loan's typically not a loan product where you're going to want to go buy like a huge fixer-upper property. They may not lend on that. But bottom line, just because it's 0% down does not automatically mean it's a good deal. Always run your numbers, assess your cash flow, make sure the location and the asset class matches your investing goals, and talk with a lending professional. I am not a lending professional. These are just things that I have learned along the way. This is one of the lowest risk, highest leverage ways for busy physicians to get into real estate, for residents to get into real estate investing. You do not need to be a full-time investor. You do not need to flip houses or buy 100 units overnight. You just need one good property. Let your tenants pay your mortgage, build equity, learn the game, and over time, you can keep stacking properties that create serious long-term wealth without burning out or waiting for someday. Just get started. So if you're a physician, a dentist, or a veteran who hasn't taken advantage of these 0% down loan programs, This might be your opportunity to stop waiting and start building wealth. You already have the income. You already have the credentials. Now it's time to apply the strategy and take action. If this episode helped you, share it with a colleague, a co-resident, or another doctor who's ready to take control of their financial future. If you want to connect, you can reach me at physiciansandproperties.com or DM me on Instagram at physiciansandproperties. Until next time, keep investing in yourself, in your freedom, in your future, and stay tuned for the next episode of the Physicians and Properties podcast. Take care. Hey, real quick, if you're still listening to this, I'm assuming you got value from it. So I need your help specifically. My 2-year vision with this podcast is to help 100,000 physicians learn how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want. There are 2 main ways that a podcast grows. One is through ratings and reviews, and the other is word of mouth. If you can please leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as send this to 1 to 2 friends that you think would get value from it, we can reach the physicians that we want to reach. Thanks in advance, and talk to you on the next episode. Please note that the information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only. It should not be considered financial, medical advice. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host and the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.